Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm Annie, and normally Peter's here, but he's out for mental health. Even if you're just casual or a mobile game player, join us every week while we rant, rave, and ramble about games we like, or maybe we don't like. Right now it's time to ask, what is this game? Well, this week it's just me, so I'm going to be talking about a game that I'm pretty familiar with. It's Warframe. It's a free-to-play third-person shooter. So this episode's going to be a little bit different, obviously, because it's just me. So I've never done any sort of solo podcast or any sort of solo broadcast at all. I'm not too good at talking to just myself, or as far as I know, who knows? Anyway, we're just going to kind of get right into it. Warframe is a third person shooter. It's free to play. It kind of focuses on the aspect of creating a power fantasy. So you just play to kind of just infinitely increase your own level and proficiency at killing things in the game just by playing the game and getting better and upgrading your own stuff. Uh, the game kind of focuses around what they call the mod system. So you use like little trading cards essentially to upgrade your equipment and your warframe, which is your character. It's to get into how the inventory works. You play as the Warframe, which is like a robot who has different magical powers and is essentially a cyborg ninja. They can fly through the air, they can bullet dodge, they can wall climb, they can double jump. They're super agile, despite the fact that they are big, hunking mechanical beasts with, magical powers. So, one of the staple characters is called Excalibur, and his powers are all about sword usages. Uh, I got a intro cinematic from DE, the developers of the game, that stands for Digital Extremes. They kind of, uh, they kind of really shaped the free to play genre in my mind because it's the only game that I've wanted to pay for, despite the fact that it's free to play. Let me go into the clip that I was talking about. It should appear like right over here. I think if I have the shit set up right. I don't know. Like I said, this is just kind of a chess thing. Let me turn this down because I don't want it to talk over me. So you pick a warframe, and the warframe, like I said, has abilities that allow you to do certain things. The three starter warframes are Excalibur, Mag, and now it's Volt. It used to be a different warframe, and it's kind of rotated differently throughout the years as the game has changed and adapted. Uh, so you have Excalibur, who I mentioned before, is about swords and stuff. Then you have Mag, who controls magnetic powers. She's got an ability to pull enemies, to attract bullets to them, to strip their shields, and to crush them with magnetic powers. She's pretty cool. She's actually one of my favorites. And a lot of people, weirdly enough, say she's not very good, but I mean, whenever I play her, I'm usually top of the leaderboard for damage and kills and definitely abilities casted because Mag is one of the warframes that is more focused around her abilities instead of the gunplay. We'll get into that in a minute, though. And the third starting warframe is Volt. Uh, he is pretty straightforward. He's the electricity guy. His first ability just shoots a lightning bolt. His second ability puts out a shield that can block bullets and electrify bullets that you shoot through them. Here in the cutscene right now, we can see the warframes. She's talking about them, and I mean, what she's saying isn't important. It's just a cool thing to have over here on the side. Uh, well, for people that aren't, or people that are watching, they can see it, but people that are listening, I guess it doesn't really matter. Uh, anyway, so Volt's third ability is speed. It makes him go really fast, and his fourth ability is just like a big discharge of electricity. He shoots lightning all over the place. It bounces off walls and different enemies, and it's just like big chain lightning. So each Warframe has four abilities, and you can use those four abilities in synergy with other abilities and synergy with your teammates, which you can have up to four of. or you can decide to play the game all by yourself, because as you can see from this, I keep pointing that way. As you can see from this clip over here, the Warframes are pretty proficient at killing anything they come across. There's some of the wall running. You can dodge bullets, and now Excalibur is using his fourth ability, which is the magical blade. It's got energy beams and all sorts of things. He essentially turns into a Jedi, I guess. But anyway, moving on. The story, as we're looking at right now on this cinematic, you are a Warframe, which is the machine that has the magical abilities and holds your weapons. But you aren't just the Warframe. You are also what is called a Tenno. A Tenno is a psychic powered child warrior that is infused with powers of the void to allow them to do fantastic things. So now we're going to kind of get into the lore of uh, Warframe just a little bit, because the Warframe lore is what I am most passionate about, no doubt. I love how crazy and how deep things get, and for years, fans have theorized about certain things that ended up becoming reality, and we'll get into that. But so the story starts off. You wake up as one of these Warframes, and you get a message from this lady called the Lotus. It's just this kind of faceless woman who communicates to you. I assume telepathically, because maybe you have a built-in radio transponder or something like that. Who knows? But she communicates with you, and you wake up from like cryo sleep, and these enemies that are being fought in the cinematic are called the Grineer, and they're coming to essentially take the Warframe and try to use it for whatever they can. They don't really know how powerful it is or anything like that, because it's kind of a weapon of myth. So you wake up just in time to stop yourself from being captured, and then you get a message from the Lotus telling you run, and she kind of walks you through and does the tutorial. You as the Warframe have three weapons with you almost at all times. You have a primary weapon, a secondary / sidearm, and your melee weapon. And the melee combat is pretty cool, especially with the newer updates. So you pick one of these weapons lying around, and you kind of walk through the tutorial zone, and you learn to aim and move with your Warframe, and easily dispatch these Grineer, who are supposed to be these tough, clone warriors. They're supposed to be intimidating, but you are an absolute killing machine. So you go through and you blaze through, and you eventually, as you're clearing through this and trying to escape being captured, you get a communication from an AI. They're called Cephalons. The Cephalons in Warframe are very varied on how intelligent they are. They can be very simple, just kind of computing commands and not doing very much, or they can be full-fledged personalities, and even like super geniuses who can strategize and help you get better at killing things through their vast knowledge of research and stuff like that. So cephalons can get pretty crazy. But anyway, you get contacted by a cephalon as you're trying to escape with the help of the Lotus, and this cephalon is named Ordis. Ordis. And Ordis is he's kind of a typical annoying sidekick. He's overly happy all the time. He's got too good of an attitude, despite the fact that everything is fucked and he himself is broken. He's glitching sometimes between he has like a rampant personality that's kind of angry and violent and talks about like murder and stuff, whereas his real personality is very happy and friendly and being like, "Ooh, I love you." And so anyway, he contacts you and he tells you, "Hey, I'm so glad, you're okay. It's good to see you again. I have your ship ready. If you meet me here, I got your ship, and we can get out of here." So you're like, "Okay, well, I don't know. I don't really have much of a choice but to trust you." So you go in and you follow this guy and this girl, this both of them who just are talking to you. You have no choice but to trust you. They're the only ones not shooting you right now. So you get off the planet finally with your ship, and it turns out that this Cephalon used to be yours back way in the old war, which is something that happened probably from the time you start playing. It probably happened about 1,000 years ago, just estimating. The timeline is a little bit skewed because it's changing constantly, and they've rewritten it slightly a couple of times to make things more cohesive and work better together. And can get even more confusing if you think about including their first game, which is called Dark Sector. Uh, anyway, moving on. You get off the planet and you take your ship, which is called a Lisset. It's just a little drop ship. It's kind of shaped like an arrowhead. Um, and you just fly through space and link up with what is called your orbiter. Your orbiter is a completely cloaked and undetectable, uh, kind of like a mothership. It's where all of your gear is stored. It's where your weapons and your customization. I actually have a clip here touring my list set and my orbiter. It should pop up here in the window. Yeah. So the list set is completely or the orbiter, sorry. The orbiter is completely customizable, and you can put a bunch of different decorations around. And the orbiter serves as your hub, as well as your menu. You can either hit escape, and you can use all of the menus by clicking on things or using the keyboard. Or if you want to, you can physically walk around using your controller or your keyboard and mouse to walk around and interact with different devices. In the clip here, you can see me walking around my orbiter. I'm standing right next to the codex right now, which is like the in-game logbook. Then I walk over to the market menu where you can buy new equipment or new warframes and other things like that using currency in the game. Then I'm walking downstairs, which is the expanded area, which is going to have all of your upgrades stations. So your mods are going to be upgraded down here. Any companions, your guns, and of course your warframes. Everything down here is easily accessible through the menu, or if you want, you can walk around and interact with them physically, which kind of gives it a more immersive feel, in my opinion. I wish more games had a hub menu like this, where you can walk around and actually interact with stuff. And especially the fact that you can decorate it and color it, it makes it a lot more personable. And that, I think, is one of the things that really is great about Warframe, is they have nothing but customization. Almost everything you can think of, you can customize in various ways. You can give it different colors. Sometimes you can give it different textures. You can equip your Warframes with different armor pieces and capes, different helmets. You can customize the colors of your companions and give them armor. The list goes on. You can customize your ships for the loading screen. I'm not going to get into it because I could just list everything that's in game, because almost all of it is customizable, which is pretty cool in my opinion. So moving back all the way, so you finally get to your orbiter and you are safe, except you find out that before you were able to escape, they attached a kind of a tracker and a neutralizing device on your Warframe. And it turns out that if you don't get this device removed, you are going to be mind controlled by this evil dude named Captain Vor. He's going to use your Warframe, if he's able to control it, to prove to his bosses that he's the best of the best and try to get a promotion. He's pretty straightforward in his goals because he just wants to please his bosses, which makes him kind of boring. And I honestly don't like Vor, which is good because he's the first villain and you kind of blaze right through him. It's not that big of a deal. Although he does come back later, he's never really a threat to you. So you get contacted again by the Lotus, who says, "Oh, hey, I'm so glad you're free. But now you have this device on you. We have to get it removed." Fair enough. So now you're going to have to reach out to find somebody in the solar system that knows how to hack this device or knows somebody who can get it removed for you. So the game takes place in our solar system. So it's called the Origin System because we originated here. It's not very original naming, but anyway. So it's got, Mercury, Mars, Venus, all the 9 planets, including Pluto, and a couple of extra planets that aren't really planets but are in the system. You have Ceres, you have Sedna, Europa, a couple of extra just locations. So, and Eris, there's another one. But yeah, so you have these extra planets that kind of make up the Origin system. And all of these planets have individual missions that you can go on and do. And the mission types vary depending on the mission that you do. And we'll get into that in a minute. So anyway, you reach out to this person named Darvo, and he is able to make connections to find out how to get this device removed from you before you get mind controlled and, you lose the game, essentially. It can't happen, but it's part of the story. So you go and you finally make the connections and you get the device removed, and now you are actually just kind of free. But, you don't have any memory, you don't know who you are, you don't know where you come from, and your Cephalon companion who's running your ship also has no memory because he's like corrupted or whatever and has 2 personalities. So he's not much use of you either. So the only person that seems to know anything that you have any connections with is this mysterious Lotus person. So you kind of just follow what she says. She kind of gives you just random missions. She says, "Oh, hey, there's somebody captured here. If you could infiltrate this facility and, extract them, it would benefit us for X, Y, and Z reasons." And this is the in-game reason for why you do all these little bullshit missions. And we're going to get to the missions now, which there's a bunch of different types, and each of them function mostly different. A lot of them have similar mechanics, which makes it easy to just kind of adapt and go with the flow, even if you've never played it before. So you have the typical defense mission, where you have to defend an objective and keep it from being destroyed. It's got a limited health bar, and you kill the enemies, and then you go to the next wave and next wave. Every 5 waves, you have a chance to extract, which means leave. And you can get rewards increasing depending on how long you stay. It's one of the endless survival missions. The next mission is survival, where you just have a time limit, and every 5 minutes you get the chance to leave. It's pretty straightforward. You have an oxygen or like a life support meter, and if the life support meter depletes to 0, then you lose. You can replenish the life support by just killing enemies, and they'll drop little life support modules, or there'll be big capsules throughout the world or the mission that you're on, and it'll let you replenish like 30% of your oxygen meter at a time. It's a pretty good mission type. It's one of my favorites, actually. And then you have capture, where you just go through the mission, you kill one target, capture him, and extract. You have rescue, where you have to go in and rescue a prisoner, and then without them dying or you dying, you have to extract them. Pretty simple. You have extermination, where you just kill a certain amount of enemies and then you get to leave. You have sabotage, where you get in and you kill an objective and then you leave. Sometimes, depending on what the objective is you kill, sometimes the map will change. For example, if you're on a spaceship mission, if you go in and you destroy the reactor, depending on how you destroyed it, the ship will start to melt down or start to freeze because you cut all power to it. So the environment will change, and you'll have certain debuffs that will change you change your effects, such as removing your shields or doing damage whenever you walk through certain areas. Um, it's not too big of a deal because you can just zoom right through it because your Warframe is so agile. And depending on which Warframe you use, you can get through the missions even faster, such as Volt, which is one of the ones I mentioned before. He's got a speed ability that just makes him run faster. So he's really good for missions where you have to get in and out, or you just want to do missions quickly. Uh, then you have a bunch of niche mission types. You have like an infestation survival. You have corrupted sabotage. You have salvage, and I could spend all day just explaining these mission types, but the variety is what keeps it interesting, and it's what keeps you kind of wanting to complete each. They're called nodes. So going back to the map, you start on Earth and you complete the first mission, and then you have like kind of a spiderweb map that you can go to go to each next mission. You complete one node, and then it'll unlock the next one in a line, and this is how you start completing your star chart. The star chart is just the fancy name and in-game name for the space map, the navigation map. It's where all of your missions are and all of your events and stuff are held. I should have pulled a clip for it to show it, but I mean, it's not that fancy. I mean, I like it. It's pretty cool. You can zoom in and out and see the different planets, and the planets will turn and have different cycles, and ships will fly around them. It's a pretty dynamic map, actually, now that I'm talking about it more. I actually like it a lot. But, so you get talked to by the Lotus, and she tells you, hey, why don't you start completing these missions, and just you basically start just becoming a mercenary because you have nothing else to do. So you start doing missions on Earth because that's the only place you know, and that's the only place you have access to. And your ship is able to take you on and off the planet pretty easily. It doesn't have like what is it called? Like a warp drive or a jump drive or anything like that. You can't really go interplanetary very easily with your dropship. It's not that fancy. So you just kind of start completing missions on the planet, and then you eventually complete enough of them to reach what is called a relay. And this relay, if you are strong enough and reach the prerequisites, it's like mini quests such as do 3 of this mission, unlock this, upgrade a thing. These relays in-game serve as a barrier and a tutorial to keep you going and to show you how to do things in-game, such as like upgrade your stuff. If you don't have somebody to show you or a video, then it can be a good way to just progress is by looking at the relays and figuring out what you have to do to progress through them. So one of the first ones is, on Earth, and it links you to either Mars, the next planet, or it links you back towards Venus, the previous planet. And, excuse me, once you have these relays completed, they unlock what is called a solar rail. In universe, it's essentially a stargate. It shoots a big energy current through space that you can use your orbiter to ride in between planets, and this functions as the sort of jump gate between worlds that allows you to progress interplanetary. So that's just kind of the in-game explanation, because they don't want you to just go wherever you want at the beginning of the game. So once you reach Venus, you start getting quests very quickly through the story. And there's tons of different quests that are in varying levels of story. And the story, like I've mentioned, is really where I start to get excited about the game. On Venus, there is a colony of, essentially slave workers. They're called the Solaris United. they are indebted to the Corpus, who I'll get into in a minute, and the Solaris United have to pay off their debts to be free. Although it's a system that's kind of rigged against them to keep them permanently indebted. So the way it starts is you're beset on your luck and you need a job, or you're falling behind, or for whatever reason, you need a job bad enough that you decide, I'm gonna go to Venus. The Venus is freezing cold almost all the time. It's got like sub-zero temperatures because of the terraforming that was done thousands of years ago. And it's very inhospitable. The environment itself is trying to kill you almost at all times. Think like Pandora from Borderlands or Pandora from the Avatar movies. Both of them are shitty planets that just want to fuck you up. So these people decide, I'm going to go to Venus and I'm going to work one of these really risky jobs, and I'm going to do it for the high pay that they're doing in exchange for the risk. However, Venus is so dangerous that most people will die if in a couple of hours, if not minutes, of being on the surface. So the Corpus offer a program where you can sell your body to upgrade it into machine parts. So you can become like almost fully robot. So your body doesn't die and you don't get tired while you're out there on Venus doing this harsh mining or collecting of rare materials and so on. That is the job of the Solaris United. So these people end up selling their whole bodies, and that puts them in debt because they can't afford the upgrades to become a robot. So they have to kind of pawn their body. It's a better way to say it than selling it. They pawn their body off, and it becomes their anchor, their collateral, so they can get their upgrades. Problem is, the Corpus have it set up so the money that you make on this dangerous job is almost never enough to pay off the debt that you start getting into. And if you start being late on your payments and you miss them, you can either get your parts taken away from you, think a la Reaper Man or Repo Man, or worse, you can get your sentence extended and have to do more grueling labor. Anyway, it's just an overall very shitty situation that they end up having to get into, and then once they're in, they don't really have an option to get out, which is frankly really shitty for them. So they're not exactly slaves, but they signed their life away, and now they're permanently indebted to the Corpus. So, getting to the Corpus is the other major faction that's kind of against you in the solar system. On Earth, it's primarily populated and held by the Grineer, who are the people I mentioned at the beginning. They are a race of human clones that just have degenerative sickness, and they get more and more lumpy and cancerous. Think Deadpool and the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Think of them fused together. That's kind of what the Grineer are. They're just hideous monster men that are only bred to kill and then die, or bred to do labor and die. But no matter what, kind of the end point of the Grineer is to just die for their queens. The Grineer are kind of shitty. They don't have a lot of story to them, and they're not really supposed to, because they're just supposed to be general fodder enemies. Anyway, the Corpus is the other faction that takes up a lot of the solar system whenever the Grineer aren't populating it with all of their clone soldiers. The Corpus are a bunch of, well, for the most part, humans, or upgraded humans, or cloned humans that aren't fully degenerated. They're all grouped together in sort of a merchant cult, a merchant warrior. Well, not warrior, a merchant cyber. I don't know. It's hard to describe them. Um, they're essentially space capitalism on steroids. Their whole goal is profit above all else, and they'll do almost anything to achieve it. They have plenty of bad guys, and the bad guy that is on Venus, his name is Nathaniel. His whole goal is he's obsessed with the void, which we might get into. Um, and he worships it because he believes that it has the power to give him, I don't know, everything that he wants and basically grant wishes. Which he kind of believes that because, well, you're kind of an example of it. You are magical and you have these powers that are bestowed upon you through the void. And that's where his worship kind of comes through it. There's a lot of people in the solar system that think the void is sentient and is benevolent to them, although there's a lot of evidence to prove the contrary. Anyway, Nathaniel is the leader of this group on Venus, the Solaris United, and the settlement, which I haven't mentioned up until now, is called Fortuna, or Fortuna, whatever, however you want to pronounce it. They live underground on the surface of Venus in just a small colony. There's hardly any lodging or anywhere to sleep or anything, because why would they need to sleep? They're robot people at this point. They can just keep going. They can just keep going until their brain shuts off and they die of, I don't know, whatever you die of whenever you just don't sleep for a long time. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but I am a lore expert. Anyway, so you get to Fortuna, and you are asked by the leader of the little colony there to help out with a couple of things. One of her, not her merchants, but a merchant that's in the town that's kind of young. He has gone missing. He was trying to pay off some debt, and he went through like a risky mission, and assumably it went bad. So she asks you to go help him and go find him. So he turns out at the end of the quest wasn't able to pay off his debt, and they basically took his body, and he didn't have enough arms he didn't have enough money to pay for arms, so he is just a torso, head, and legs. And so now, as kind of a screw you to the man and laughing at his own misfortune, he goes just by legs now. And he is now the vendor that can sell you robots as a companion. But, that's off topic. So, you save legs, and the leader of the colony, Yudiko, she's very grateful to you. And you kind of start working your way in. You start doing jobs for different people around the town and gaining a better reputation with them. And this is one of the core mechanics throughout the game, is like a reputation syndicate system. So Solaris United is one of the syndicates, and you can upgrade your standing with them by doing missions and turning in resources, farming, mining, certain things, and helping out the community. The reason you want to do that is because you'll upgrade your standing with them, and you'll get access to new weapons and new weapon parts to create like customizable weapons and unlock warframes that you can only get there or by buying with the currency platinum. So you start working your way through there, and you eventually max out your reputation with them. At that point, they trust you enough that they want to take a chance and raid Nathaniel. They want to put it all on the line, to destroy both of these sentries that Nathaniel has placed outside Fortuna. There's two big, like, spider orbs. In the tour, when I was walking around my orbiter, you could see them positioned in the corner as, like, little miniatures. So they're positioned around Fortuna. One of them walks around, and her goal is to motivate the corpus that are on the planet to do their job better. And then there is the other one. Her name is the Profit Taker, and she just sits on the spaceport, preventing people from leaving, and has her guns aimed directly at Fortuna just in case they decide to rebel or anything like that. She's ready to absolutely fuck them up. The other one's named Exploiter. I don't know if I said that. But anyway, so you're tasked with destroying both of these spiders and freeing the city from the direct oppression of Nathaniel. Obviously, they'll still be indebted, and if they try to escape, the corpus can come and collect on them and stuff. So there's somebody in town that has set up a business of allowing you to purchase the debt of these workers. So you can essentially free them by paying enough money or paying enough resources to pay off their debt. And the reason you want to do this is because you'll get a token, and that token can be used around the city to buy certain materials, which is very useful. The whole game has a crafting mechanic, so you can constantly keep upgrading your arsenal to be more expansive. So now that we're on slightly the topic of the arsenal, there are a crap ton of weapons. I'm going to play a clip here now where I'm just kind of just scrolling through all the weapons I own. There's way more weapons in the game, and each of them are pretty different. I mean, there's some guns that are the same, and some guns that are just variants of the same gun. Example is one of the starting assault rifles is the Bratton, and they have the Bratton Prime, which is like the upgraded Royal version of it, and then they have the Bratton Vandal, which is the like bandit version. It shoots faster and has more ammo but does less damage. Then you have anyway, there's just different variants of the gun that have different stats that make them more or less useful in certain categories. So, excuse me, I have acid reflux, and I should cut this part out. Anyway, so you are finally cleared of the oppression in Fortuna. You killed both of the orbs, and then you're able to eventually help them attack Nathaniel's orbital stations and the ships that he has around blockading Venus. And you do this to kind of just free up the oppression on Fortuna. Now, unfortunately, like I mentioned, you can't just free them permanently because they are still indebted, but you can make them less oppressed by gunfire. Moving on, though, once you go to new planets and you start progressing through them, you will unlock various quests, and that's where you'll meet new NPCs, and you'll be able to progress through the story. So you just, in the early game, your only goal really is to just complete the star chart and start going through it to unlock more areas. However, eventually you start hearing rumors of deadlier enemies throughout the system. You start being patrolled and hunted by a person just simply named the Stalker. You don't know who he is, or where he came from, or really what his deal is. But one time, after you clear one of these bosses, these big baddies throughout the planets, you're contacted through a message, and he just says, your actions have consequences. If you don't know a lot about the game, you just think, okay, well, I don't know what this means, but this seems like an evil guy or whatever. So you just shrug it off and you just keep playing. But now you're marked for death by the Stalker. And if during any mission that you play, you can stumble upon this guy, and he will try to kill you and any teammate that you're playing with. If he kills you, because, or whoever he's targeting, then he'll complete his mission and he'll leave. If you beat him, he'll drop various item pieces and various pieces of loot that only he can drop. Now, I have been playing Warframe for essentially 9 years, almost 10 years. It's been a long time. I have about 4,000 hours on Steam, and a lot of that hours is just sitting in the orbiter, just decorating my Warframes and painting them and changing upgrades on my weapons. But I still have 4,000 hours in the game, roughly, over the course of 10 years. Excuse me. And over these 10 years, I've killed the Stalker probably, just conservatively, probably 100 times. I have yet to get his scythe. He drops 3 different weapons. He drops a bow, he drops a set of kunai that you can throw, and he drops his little scythe. It's called the Hate. And, ooh boy, am I mad that I do not have the Hate. It's been 9 years, and I don't have it. I've killed him, and I have everything else from him. I have his like armor effect. I have his color palette. I have all of his other weapons. I have every mod he drops. I have a mini version of him. Everything. But I don't have his fucking scythe. It's just bad RNG. And RNG plays a huge part in Warframe. And honestly, I wouldn't be mad at people that don't like to play Warframe just because of the RNG. I mean, there's plenty of reasons to not like Warframe. The game itself, since it's free to play, you can buy almost anything. You can just put your credit card in and just buy this, buy that, buy this, buy this, buy this, if you wanted to. It's not really pay to win necessarily, because the whole game is PvE. There is a PvP mode, but it's not really good. And honestly, I've only played it a tiny little bit because it's just bad. There's so many things that make it not good. You can't use your full set of equipment, and the movement is just too crazy. If I had gameplay footage, I would put it here now, but your Warframes are so agile that it would be, unless you have really good reaction times, it's almost impossible to shoot people, and you only kill them with abilities, cheap tricks, or meleeing them, because melee doesn't really miss unless you're blocking. So, I don't play PvP, and neither does most of the community, and the developers don't really treat it with any respect at all, honestly. And it's kind of a shame, because Warframe PvP could be really good. I think, personally, what it really needs to do, since the game is so fast-paced, if everything in PvP, if all actions and movements were slowed down by 50%, I think it would make the game a lot more fluid and competitive. I don't play with good hardware. I don't have good specs on my computer, and Warframe it focuses on whoever is host, so it's peer-to-peer. There's no dedicated servers, and there's nothing to stop the game from lagging if somebody disconnects or has a terrible connection, because you're connected to the host in their computer and not the servers. So matches can be really inconsistent, which I think is a huge hindrance on PvP. And especially since Warframe is a game that the physics in the game are tied almost directly to your FPS. So, for example, if you're walking along and you do like a big jump and roll and you're flying through the air and you have a frame skip on your computer because your hardware sucks and you like lag, you will very briefly stop moving in game because of the frame skip, and that loss of momentum will sometimes fuck up your jump. And sometimes, well, you don't necessarily die from it, because if you fall in a hole or anything, you just respawn at your last safe location. But it doesn't make it any better, because you still, if you lag, you fall behind. You could be the best and fastest at getting through missions, but if you have crappy FPS, you're gonna start falling behind just because your game physically can't go fast enough. And they may have fixed this, but this is how the game has worked for a long, long time. And a lot of people a lot of people that I've played with have argued that this is a fact, because they have decent hardware and they never really experienced the frame skip into ledge falling. So they're like, oh, well, I've not experienced it, so it's not a real thing. And that's kind of a common reaction, but it doesn't make me feel better when they're like, oh, it doesn't happen to me, so I'm cool. I go, okay, well, I'll be there in a second. But despite the issues that I have with my hardware, I am still very, very quick in a game because of my experience and time that I've played the game. Touching a little bit on the missions themselves, Warframe functions on a no, it's not procedural, but it's whatever. It's generated randomly, each mission, like which way you go and which rooms are in the mission. But it functions on a tiled system. So, for example, if you're on the moon, there is only 30 different rooms on the moon. There's 5 different hallways, 6 different junction rooms, 10 different main rooms, and they will be placed in random order to create a pathway through the mission. This is both good and bad, because the reason it's good, the reason it's bad is because missions are never really fully unique. Sometimes they have special rooms, or sometimes they have rooms that have special objects in them to make them more story-oriented. And they sometimes have unique rooms, but very rarely. So that's kind of the bad thing. The good thing, though, is since Warframe is so fast-paced and most players want to just get to the end to complete the mission, having prior knowledge of the tiles can be very advantageous. Here's a good example. So you walk into a room and it's just a cube. So it's just got 4 walls and 4 doors. In the middle, there's a hole, and on the corners, there's a couple of lasers. So you just have to jump over the lasers and go to one of the 3 doors that you didn't come into. And then one of those 3 doors is the way you're supposed to go, and one of those ways will usually be an extra way or a dead end. And that's good, because whenever you walk into the room, you will immediately know, okay, there's 2 doors here and 1 door there. And even without thinking, you can head straight to it and know, okay, this is the room with the hole in the middle. Don't fall in the hole, jump over the hole, and you can just make very fast calculations in your mind to decide which way you're going to go. And it makes it really easy to path, especially since some of the tiles have verticality to it. They have 2 or 3 levels, and sometimes you walk into the bottom floor and you have to go all the way up to get to the next part of the mission. So this is where you come in with your parkour abilities and your high intensity movement. You've got bullet jumping, you can roll. We got into all of that, but you can combine all these movements together to not literally fly. I mean, there is one Warframe that can literally fly, but you can zip through the mission at crazy speeds, even if you're not one of these speedy Warframes like Volt. So, combining my finger dexterity, I play with the keyboard, combining my dexterity and my thousands of hours of gameplay and my weird obsessive knowledge of the tiles themselves, I'm almost able to beat anyone through a mission with just a speed run. And that's not bragging or anything. That's just one of the things that I'm good at, is getting through the mission very quickly. Now, that can sometimes be a detriment to my teammates, because if they die, or, they need to do something, or they're looking for something, sometimes I will abandon them, and they will either hold me up or they'll die because I wasn't able to revive them. So when playing with teammates, it's kind of important to limit how fast you want to go through the mission, which isn't really a bad thing. Some people complain you're going too fast, but a lot more people complain that you're going too slow. So as you get better and better at Warframe, you're naturally just going to get faster, because you're going to walk into a room and immediately know where the door is. You won't even have to think about it, because it's not a brand new room. You played through this room hundreds of thousands of times, sometimes 3 times in the same mission, because tile sets don't have that many unique tiles. I could get into how many different tile sets there are. Each planet kind of has their own unique one. An example is Jupiter. Yeah, Jupiter is a gas mining facility that the Corpus have stationed around the planet in low orbit to mine the gas for whatever purposes. I don't know. Power, profit, that's kind of their whole deal. So they are just mining gas, and the tile set is very huge, open, kind of floating mining platforms, just floating in the sky. A lot of really open rooms. Sometimes there's zip lines. Sometimes the gaps will be hundreds of feet wide, and you'll have to parkour around. Or if you're advanced, you can chain a bunch of movement together to fly over the gap. It's pretty impressive to watch these people do this advanced movement, in my opinion. But that's something I've always loved about Warframe specifically, is how fast-paced it is, and how constantly action is happening. Even in missions like survival or defense, where you have these little bits of downtime, it makes up for it with the high amount of action during the whatever the opposite of an interlude is. I don't know. Moving on, though. So, sorry. Acid reflux is really killing me. Anyway, so you move on, and you start meeting more people. Like, after you find the stalker, you try to find out who he is. So you meet a mysterious cephalon. His name is Samaris. He has an obsession with knowledge. He kind of has like a virtual reality where he will categorize and simulate. He will simulate these people, and he will simulate their weaknesses and make them live lives and die, and learn everything he can through essentially ethically gray torture. See, I wouldn't have a problem with it, except one of the voice lines that he says himself, it kind of makes you think that he is aware that these creatures are sentient and they're probably suffering this whole time. But he's like, oh, well, it's not important. Do lab rats experience pain? We still do that, and it's okay. It's like, that's like saying, you can't justify one thing with another thing. That's not how it works, unfortunately. Oh well. So he uses his simulation to train you to be better at killing. However, as you work with it, you find out that he's not really studying them, he's studying you. He wants to learn more about all these warframes and all of their special abilities to kind of create his own encyclopedia. And hey, this is just me fan speculating, but it's possible he can make like digital clones of you, and that's the last thing we need is clones of you. But anyway, the Samaras, he wants you to help him out with his research. So he gives you tools that are able to digitize enemies and capture them. It all seems to me very, very great. And I don't really care about ethics. It's a fucking video game or whatever. Who cares? But I just don't like him as a character. He's very valuable and very useful, but I can't trust somebody that's gonna be so flippant about their... I don't even know what I'm saying. Anyway, I'm just probably gonna wrap it up. I don't need to go another 30 minutes. I think I've had plenty to say about Warframe. And, you know, it's kind of hard doing a solo episode. I don't know. It's been pretty fun. There's plenty more I could talk about, but I don't want to just ramble all day. I just wanted to sit down and record something just so I could have structure and stability. I didn't want to miss an episode, and unfortunately my co-host is trying to... Well, it's not unfortunate. Good for him that he's taking care of himself. It's wonderful. And I don't want to put anything against him. I just thought that I could jump on and talk about Warframe for a little bit. There's so much to the game, and I've played so much of it and barely touched on anything. Like, I didn't even get into Warframes. Here, I'm gonna just play a clip of showing you the frames themselves. There's hundreds of them. There's so many. I have most of them. I have the Prime version of every Warframe available, which is the upgraded version. It's like the pre-war old era one. It has better upgrades and better systems, and they're also gold and fancy. So I'm scrolling through the list, and you can see them all, and there are so many to collect, and that's what makes the game, to me, so enticing, and what keeps me coming back. Whenever a new Warframe comes out, I'm so excited to try it, because there are only a couple of abilities in the game that are even similar to other abilities. Warframes are so unique. I could just pause anywhere in this list of frames and just go on and on about their abilities. But then I'm just reading the Wikipedia in my brain at that point. And getting on the Wikipedia, I mean, the Warframe Wiki is probably one of the best fan creations I've seen for a game. I don't know another Wikia that is more detailed and has more community work put into it. I mean, I've not played every game, and I'm sure like maybe the World of Warcraft one is, or something like that. But since Warframe is so math oriented with its upgrades and weapons and its numbers and stats, like every clip I've played, you can just see numbers all over the place because it matters. So the wiki has percentages, stats, it has calculators, and it's all fueled by the fan base, which is my favorite part of Warframe, honestly. Out of everything, is the community. They're fantastic. If you, the listener, wanted to go play right now and just start off, all you have to do is get past the tutorial and get to rank 2, like your character rank, and then you'll be able to trade and get support and help from almost anyone online. And there's thousands of people online at all times. There's a dedicated Discord, and there is a market website so you can buy and sell items with players. The community is just absolutely fantastic. People are more than happy to just literally give you things, and it's what keeps me coming back. That and the constant updates and new things that come out. I haven't played in a while, and I didn't even really do like any research or anything on this beforehand, so that's why it's kind of been loosey-goosey. But I've played so much Warframe that I could just talk about it forever. If I ever have to do a solo episode again, I'll probably just jump into Warframe Warframe again because it's such a huge pool, and I could talk about the lore, I could talk about mechanics, I could talk about missions. I love it. And if you, the player, want to go and try out a free-to-play game that has a huge expansion or a huge expansive uh, list of backlogged material and things that are constantly on the way, I would really recommend Warframe. Yeah, it's it constantly tries to get you to pay for it with like platinum purchases so you can buy Warframes and upgrades, but it's one of those games that you can trade items, so you can trade them to players and sell them to make that platinum in game. So you never, if you're dedicated enough, you never have to spend $1. And that's not me. I value my time a lot more than I value my money. So I'm willing to spend money whenever I can on the game for upgrades and stuff like that, because I don't want to just sit there for 12 hours to get one thing. It's just it's not my type of gameplay loop. I love the hack and slash just murder everybody, but I don't want to always go through and do the work to get there. So if you can get past that part, then Warframe is great, honestly. Anyway, I think I'm probably gonna wrap up because I don't have much more to say right now, and I want to go play Legend of Zelda. Anyway, thank you anyone for listening. I know it's been kind of a weird episode, but I appreciate you. We should be back next week, me and Peter, and we will probably be talking about the real-time strategy game Beyond All Reason. It's like StarCraft, or, well, I mean, if you know what a real-time strategy is, you know what it is. You know what it's like. But it's done by a tiny team of indie developers. It's free to play, and right now it's updated like multiple times a day, and they're gonna get on Steam soon. And I only played an hour today, and it was fantastic. I've never really played an RTS that I sunk any time into other than Halo Wars. So it's been really exciting to get into it and just start learning about it, because it's a lot different than a turn-based strategy, obviously. I mean, but that's what I'm used to for my strategy games. On my Switch, I usually play Civilization 6. I just kind of have it on the side, and I, just play it occasionally when I'm getting ready for work, or I'm just laying around watching YouTube, because it's a great game to have on the side. But playing Bar has been great because it just makes me focus everything at one time, which, I don't know, it's just a different type of gameplay for me. It's competitive against yourself and then other people. So whenever I play it again, I'm going to hopefully play with Peter, and we're going to play on the same team and just kind of fight AI until I kind of get the hang of what I'm doing, because I really like the game. And if it's something Peter wants to play, then I'd love to do it and do a whole episode on it, because he's really into it and I'm kind of getting into it now. So that should be next week's episode. We should be, hitting Tuesday again. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. I'm kind of rambling at this point, so I'm going to wrap it up. I appreciate you, everyone, and see you next Tuesday.